The last few years of my life could be summed up by the word challenging. It had been challenging to catch my breath running up and down the basketball court. It had been a challenge when my back and body ached from scoliosis. It was a challenge recovering from the NUS procedure, and the NUS procedure is a surgery to insert a metal rod across my chest. It essentially popped it up into place. Those challenges were explained on July 20th, 2020, when I was diagnosed with Marfan syndrome. I finally had a diagnosis for my physical ailments, but the biggest challenge was now beginning. How would I deal with this diagnosis emotionally? I had always defined myself by my athletic ability. I was a tall kid, the one that could block shots and jump higher than others. I played varsity basketball as a sophomore, and I was cutting down nets in tournaments and getting better every day. I practiced 7 days a week, and basketball was my life. But it was all taken away from me the day of my diagnosis. All contact sports were permanently banned. I'm not much of a crier, but on that day in the hospital room, the tears flowed. Who was I supposed to be if I was not an athlete? My world turned upside down in an instant. I'm not going to lie and say that I immediately had this sunshiny attitude. I struggled, and there were some dark moments. I questioned everything about my life. My mom stood by my side, as did my coaches and my teammates. They supported me before I was strong enough to ask for support. As time passed, however, I realized that I needed to do more for myself. That's when I reached out to the Marfan Foundation. Through them, I found out about teen support groups. I discovered ways to raise awareness for this disease. I learned how to write lawmakers and ask for additional research funds. I even spearheaded the drive of February 2021 and declared it Marfan Syndrome Awareness Month in Kentucky. This provided me with an opportunity to speak to news outlets about my disease. I shared the signs of what to look for and what people can do to get involved with the cause. It gave me the courage and confidence to speak to my basketball teammates about living every day to its fullest and not taking anything for granted. Living with Marfan syndrome is a daily challenge, but I've discovered that I'm up for the challenge because of the support I get from my family and the Marfan Foundation. I'm a work in progress as I journey through my senior year of high school. I know that my disease will continue to present new challenges. I realize now, however, that I am supported by so many. My supporters make all the difference in how I deal with the emotional trauma I've experienced. They help me find the positives from my diagnosis. For example, I've had a lot more time to devote to academics. I even carried over a 4.0 GPA last school year, taking multiple college level classes. In addition, I found inner strength that I didn't have before. This strength allows me to talk to others about Marfan syndrome. Lastly, I have found that my family and friends love and accept me for who I am, even though I'm not the athlete I was when my high school journey began. But I'm okay with that. I found peace through my challenges, all because of my supporters. And then here are some things that I would recommend to teens that are facing a similar diagnosis. 1, develop a good relationship with your specialist. My doctor is Dr. Mary Shepard at the University of Kentucky, and I talk to her about anything. She includes me in important conversations about medication and healthy lifestyle. I know that I can ask her for anything, and she always has time for my questions. Number 2, be an advocate for yourself at school. Know what your rights are and make sure that you are comfortable while at school. 3, don't let your diagnosis keep you from making future plans, like going away for college and having fun. Number 4, take charge of your health. Exercise according to what your doctor says, eat healthy, and give your body plenty of rest. Also, take all the medications that your doctor wants you to take. 5, get involved with the Marfan Foundation to help save lives. You can advocate, fundraise, write letters, and be a social media presence. These activities look great on college and scholarship applications.
So I'm Kelly, I'm Luke's mom. I had never heard of Marfan syndrome until Luke's doctor mentioned it during a middle school well check. This was with a new doctor. She was concerned because he had stretch marks that ran across his back, and he had the tall, lanky build, had the sunken in chest. And the stretch marks in his chest had gotten a lot worse since his last checkup. So she was going to refer him for some testing. Of course, when we got home from the appointment, I do what everyone does. I researched for hours, and I knew before we went to have any of the tests done that he would test positive, because he checked so many of the boxes of the physical indicators that we look for. And I started thinking back to when Luke was a toddler, and his pediatrician said that he was going to be, 7 feet tall. And when he was in elementary school, he had a speech therapist that noticed some orthodontic and facial abnormalities, even though they were very small. So we went for our first round of tests, and it showed that his aortic root in middle school was in the upper normal range, and that he didn't meet enough of the characteristics to warrant genetic testing. They wanted us to follow up in 3 years. So I left that appointment feeling really confused about what to do. And Luke started basketball in high school. He was a great basketball player, and we had some great times with that. As he was playing high school basketball, he started experiencing lots of aches and pains that were just associated and explained away as being sports injuries, or from being from scoliosis, which was a new diagnosis that he got in high school. And we realized that no matter how hard Luke trained, he never had the wind and the endurance that his teammates had. And then also his chest, it just seemed to be sinking deeper into his body. So at that time, our pediatrician that first mentioned Marfan syndrome, she referred us to the University of Kentucky to a surgeon there, and that surgeon recommended the Nuss procedure. That was a really, really tough time for us. I think as a family, that was probably our roughest time, just because the recovery was so difficult. And we still didn't have the Marfan diagnosis at that time. And he spent lots and lots of time in physical therapy. And that was where he got most of his pain relief from. So after several months, he made it back out onto the basketball court, but his aches and pains continued. Came time for the Nuss bar to come out 2 years later. And at that time, I asked the surgeon if he knew anyone there locally at the University of Kentucky that would do the follow-up from that first round 3 years ago of testing that we had. And so he referred us to Dr. Mary Shepard, and she's a doctor there at the university that is a Marfan patient herself. And so we went to meet with her, and I'll never forget that day when she diagnosed him with Marfan syndrome. And I remember Luke crying, and not about the diagnosis himself, but that he would never get to play basketball again. And I was crushed. As a mom, you want to take their pain away, you want to trade places, you just want to make it better. And there was nothing that I could do. And that was definitely the worst day for me as a parent. And then I turned to the anger phase. I started asking all the questions like, why is it my kid? Why does he have this? He doesn't deserve it. I became very mad at everyone and everything. I was upset that the diagnosis took so long, that, we had to go through so many different people to get there. Why more doctors weren't aware of the warning signs. It was just a really rough few months after we got the diagnosis. I remember I couldn't even go and watch my stepsons play any of their sports or sporting events without crying, because in my mind, I knew that I would never get to see Luke do that again. And even lately, when it's his senior year of high school, they had senior night for the basketball team. And just knowing that we should have been there was really tough. So I will say though, like Allison, your emotions change as you go through the process. After I got through some extreme anger, I I became laser focused on helping Luke get the follow-up care that he needed to stay safe, to stay healthy. And that's where the Marfan Foundation really helped me, because I was able to get all of the resources that I needed for his school teachers, for his nurse, and for anyone that interacted with him. And I can say that even though the sadness and anger occasionally creep back in, for the most part, I'm in a good place. But having a child with a chronic illness it's really tough. And like Allison said, having a support system makes it easier. So just some other things that I would recommend for parents that have school-age children with a connective tissue disorder is just to say that, it's okay to be sad and to be angry and every other emotion. And that it's really important that you take care of yourself as the caregiver as well, and find someone to talk to because you need that. Next, talk with your child's school about getting paperwork on an emergency health plan and a 504 plan. And each state's a little different for that and country. But as a teacher, I know that's something I appreciate. And it's going to tell you what accommodations and things that your child can have at school to make them comfortable and safe. The next thing I would recommend is just being your child's #1 advocate. So even though they have an emergency health plan and learning plans in place, I make it a point to reach out to all of his teachers before the school year starts, letting them know about what Marfan syndrome is, but more importantly, what signs to look for in an emergency, since we know that patients are at risk for dissection, aneurysms, things like that. And so I always make it a point to make sure that every teacher is aware of all of that. When your child goes to college, we're going through that process right now. There's a disability office at every college that will work with you if you reach out to them and initiate that. And then I would recommend just having a really good dialogue with your child as they get older. They have lots of questions about family planning, healthy living. You just got to have a really good open dialogue between the two of you. I would recommend making sure you have a great team of doctors. I'm really grateful for the University of Kentucky and the team that we have that surround Luke. And as they transition him from pediatric surgeons and specialists into adult surgeons and everything, it's been a team effort. They're great. And then lastly, just get involved with the Marfan Foundation. It has been so great to have a support system. It's kind of like having a family. They can provide you with all of the resources that you need. And for us being diagnosed during COVID, it has been especially helpful because, we haven't been able to meet up around people. And so it's been just a great tool to have there.